Namaste. In chapter 2, verses 23 and 33 and 34, but if you refuse this opportunity for righteous combat, in rejection of your duty, you will incur sin. Other people, far from honoring you, will heap your name with ignominy. To a man of self-respect, dishonor is verily worse than death. Other warriors will assume that you have avoided fighting out of fear. Those who have thought highly of you heretofore will come to regard you slightingly. Your foes will speak your name with contempt and will ridicule your progress. Could anything for a warrior be more painful? This question of honor and duty, we must understand that not everybody's duty is to fight. In our modern wars, everybody's lumped in and made to fight, but some people, it's not right for them. The most important thing here, however, is the question of honor. Because after all, if other people honor you, that's just honoring your ego. The basic thing is if you feel that dishonor in yourself, if you have disappointed yourself, if you've done something that you know was less than you should have done, or avoiding what you should have done, that is very painful. The opinions of others may be right or wrong, but your self-opinion is an important thing. You must live up to what you know in yourself is your right action and right duty. And so this is actually a very important passage, and I'm glad to have read it here today. If you are killed in battle, you will attain heaven. If you win this war, you will obtain earthly glory. Arise, therefore, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, determined to fight. Be even-minded in the face of pleasure or pain, gain or loss, victory or defeat. In this way you will incur no sin. I have thus explained to you the ultimate wisdom of Sankhya. Now hear the wisdom of yoga, equipped with which, O Partha, you will break the shackles of karma. So here we come to a break in the passage of what the Gita is teaching here in chapter 2. The difference between Sankhya, Yoga, and Vedanta, my Guru explained it this way. They are not different philosophies, as so many scholars believe. They're the same philosophy from different points of view. The view of Sankhya is to tell you why you should seek God, why you should seek escape from the clutches of Maya and ego. Then Vedanta tells you what the gain is when you find that freedom. And Yoga then comes in and tells you why you should seek that, how you should seek that, I should say. So in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, there's a very important, although seemingly totally insignificant word, now. We come to the study of yoga. That word now assumes a prior study, and that prior study was Sankhya. Having studied Sankhya, having understood the reasons for practicing yoga, having understood how important it is to get out of Maya and out of ego, then you have to know how you can get there. But it's important after that, and then comes Vedanta, it's important after that to know what it is that you're going to get. And so in Vedanta teachings, it expresses the oneness of the soul with God, the teaching Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi, all these great glowing comments from the ancient scriptures of India. And these are all three a part of one package, you might say. So Arjuna is being exhorted to do this as a duty. But the duty in this case is not something, and you must understand it is never something that goes against the grain for you. For many a person who's brought into the army, enlisted in the army, forced into it, drafted into it, for many such a person, the duty of going to war is not, it doesn't feel like his duty, it feels wrong. For example, the Vietnam War, they drafted people for it. I always felt it was none of our business as Americans. That's too far away. But it's interesting that my guru said that when North Korea invaded South Korea, he said, I myself put the thought in President Truman's mind to defend South Korea. That was important because he saw that communism would then come in through South Korea to Japan, to the Aleutian Islands, and down into America. He was very much against communism. And I would like to explain why. Because everybody, of course, thinks that any system that's going to think of the greatest good for the greatest number must be good. But no system works as a system. You have to take into account the people who are practicing that system. Communists are not communists, they are dictators. Communists are not communists, they are people who try to bully people into giving them power. It's a completely false philosophy because it's based on a lie. But communism as an ideal is a beautiful one. Of course we want the greatest good for the greatest number. What happens in communism is the greatest good for the very few. And so communism, worst of all, is an atheistic religion. They speak of religion as the opiate of the people. There's so many delusions in that whole system. Their symbolism is the hammer and the sickle. This is virtually tantamount to saying that the people who ought to rule society are the Shudras. Hammer and sickle, just manual labor. Always the people who are fit to lead are people who are intelligent, who have discrimination and wisdom. So communism is really one of the great curses of our times. You might call it the last Philip of Kali Yuga. And this will come in time to a big battle between democracy and communism. But the war that I see in the future, my guru said Europe will be devastated. Russia will be annihilated. These are strong statements. But I believe that until these problems have been resolved, the times we live in will not become pure Dwapara Yuga. There is now a great battle between those two different states of consciousness and levels of energy of consciousness. And so the word wisdom, which appears in the original, is conjoined with Sankhya. It does not mean Jnana Yoga. Other translations refer to Karma Yoga, which doesn't even appear in the original text. What the Gita does speak of is that which will loosen the bonds of karma. I have rendered the English translation more poetically by writing, break the shackles of karma. The meaning, of course, is the same. Paramhansa Yogananda described these three things, and I've mentioned them just in a few moments ago. Bhagavad Gita teaches all these systems. In fact, as Yogananda explained, these are not philosophies. Philosophy literally means love of wisdom. In the ancient Greek, philos, love, and sophia, wisdom. He explained that Western thinkers deserve the label philosophers, but that the great rishis and yogis of India have never been so much philosophers as seers, who in every age have never been satisfied merely to theorize about truth, but have seen and experienced it directly themselves. No Immanuel Kant, Arthur Schopenhauer, or Friedrich Nietzsche could demonstrate a fraction of the control of life, objectively as well as subjectively, that has been demonstrated from the most ancient times down to the present by the great yogi Christs of India. I have been trying, and I want to continue, to emphasize the greatness of India's ancient culture. There is no country in the world that can touch it. You know, a very interesting thing is when Marco Polo went from China through India on his way back to Italy in the 1200s, he said that India was the wealthiest country in the world. Not very long afterwards, some 3 centuries, the English came in. India very quickly became one of the poorest, and England became one of the richest. Don't you suspect some sort of cause-effect relationship? The reality of India, you know, it's very strange. I've got a book called The Invasion That Never Was, that never happened. Westerners have tried to prove that India is Johnny-come-lately, that its teachings are not the original teachings. They believe that it all came from Europe. These are all, every country likes to prove that it is the best, Germany with its master race and so on. But in fact, no country, and I'm speaking of this as an American, but certainly as one who has been won to this philosophy by the fact that it makes absolute sense, and no other one that I've ever been exposed to does make sense. So yes, I am a complete convert in this sense. But the Indian teachings, ancient as they are, derive from a much higher time. You see, we're in this world, and this is a part of the ancient teachings, but a very interesting thing is that there are some 200 ancient civilizations that also talked of cycles of time. They didn't use the word Yugas, but they used the word iron and copper and silver and gold and different ways. The Egyptians had the age of the gods, the demigods, the heroes and men, and so on. Every ancient culture, really ancient culture, talked about these 4 ages of man. And in Kali Yuga, it was somehow got into people's minds that that Kali Yuga was continuing. And so they have the idea that Kali Yuga will last for another 430,000 years. That is not true. My guru's guru was a great astrologer as well as a great yogi. And he explained that and history helps to show these truths, that in fact the yugas are much shorter. The entire cycle of time takes 24,000 years, and he compared it to the precession of the equinox. If you look at ancient history, you will see that there is a decline of knowledge. People in those days looked to the past for higher knowledge. When Homer wrote his Iliad and his Odyssey, people in those days spoke of him as divine Homer. And I have long suspected that the Iliad and the Odyssey are really like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, great allegories. You know, when I was in college, I was asked to give my criterion for great literature. And I said something, I didn't get a good grade. In fact, I got a flunking grade on this, but I still think it was valid. I said, when I read great literature, I feel that there's a light coming out of it. When I read the Iliad and the Odyssey, I feel that that light is a blazing white light. When I read Shakespeare, I feel that it's sort of golden blue. When I read Chaucer, it's sort of brown. And most literature is literally dead, spiritually dead. There's just no real power in it. But of course the teacher didn't know where I was coming from, but this is true. The vibrations of great teachings are very powerful, and they can change your consciousness. So the teachings of ancient India were very great teachings, and they can lift man to the heights, even just studying the words. So in the descending yuga, we find people coming down, find mankind descending. The beginning of Kali Yuga and the end of Dwapara were, according to Sri Yukteswar, 700 BC. This is the time Krishna, from then on, it says in the Mahabharata, from here on, everything will be darker. And this is so. And that Kali Yuga, it's a cycle. It's not as if some people say that when we attain the depths of Kali Yuga, suddenly everything will switch to Satya Yuga. Well, this is not the way things work. Everything is cyclic in a gradual way. Winter becomes spring before it becomes summer. Summer becomes autumn before it becomes winter again. These are universal truths. And so from the depths of Kali Yuga, going down, then you have ascending Kali Yuga, then ascending Dwapara Yuga, and Treta and Satya. Then when it declines, you have ascending Satya and descending Satya, and it's a constant cycle. And so we can see these things, especially with the rise of Kali Yuga from its depths. This occurred in the year 500 AD. And from then on, we see that the Roman circus and the tortures, and even St. Augustine, who was a great saint, but even he as a young man enjoyed those gladiator fights with people getting killed. That was the consciousness of those days. But now that consciousness is coming up again. And it came upward from 500 to 1700. And in 1700, suddenly we see a big shift. Well, let me go into that again tomorrow, because it's actually very interesting. The point I want to make right now is that Dwapara Yuga, literally, after the Shandhya of 200 years, took place in 1900 AD. Since then, everything that we know of modern times began. Since then, we have the airplane, the motor car, the electronics, the radio, the television. It's just inconceivable. Everything we know about the world today began just about in 1900 AD. So this is a very fascinating subject, and it ties in with what Krishna is teaching in the Gita. So we'll come back to it. Meanwhile, joy to you.